Nice brim.
Thank you. Oh, what brim do you have? My quaff today. That's what made me late today. Sorry.
You jumping in?
Yeah. Welcome everybody to another fantabulous edition of the ATF Radio Show here at Executive Lounge in sunny and hot as hell Sanford, Florida. It's 94 degrees right now. Um,
Feels like 114.
I'm happy that I left East Orlando to come out here because there's no breeze or no wind out there at all. So at least there's a little breeze coming in off the water. We are joined today by one of our favorite women in the cigar industry, and I say the cigar industry because yes, you do. You're a clothier, you're a Fedora designer, but you are also one of the biggest and honestly most influential women in cigars in this moment.
Oh, wow.
There are two other women that I put you in the class of. There's Berta Bravo, who's the Guayabera lady. That's what she goes by out of Miami.
Yeah.
She sold Guayaberas at flea markets out of her trunk, and then she ended up having a store in Coral Gables, of all places, like on the high-end strip in Coral Gables. She has a Guayabera store. And then, of course, our favorite friend, my favorite friend of the past almost 20 years, Lindsay Heller, um, one of the most talented and I don't even know another word to describe her. She's a cook. She's a cigar god.
Yes.
And coming from me, that's a huge thing to say. But she just, she is one of those people, and it just goes across everything. It doesn't matter nationality, sex, or anything like that. She is one of the best at picking apart cigars, which is why she is the head selector for cigars.com. She does a great job writing. She's a phenomenal cook. She's fluent in 8 languages.
Nine.
Nine, oh, I'm sorry, 9 now.
Wow, you putting me in this category too?
Look, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you came on the scene, and it was one of those things where
You're also a multi-hyphen. But continue.
Art sent me your Instagram. He was like, "Hey, have you seen this woman?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Look at her, and just look at the page." And I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah, that's what.
I'm like, "That was 2 years ago."
2 years ago.
And I'm like, "Man, this is," and it's amazing because, especially in the society we live in today, um, women are always in the background and never in the forefront. And you have come into the cigar industry and said, "This is me. Like it or hate it, I'm here, and you're gonna end up wearing my stuff."
Yeah.
And it's one of those where we just sit back and watch, and your followers just grow and grow. And then I see friends that I've known for years, and they have on one of your fedoras,
Oh.
and they're tagging you in posts, and I'm like, "Shit, my friend's in Cali. That friend's in New York. That friend's in Houston." You know, I'm like, she's fucking everywhere. Like, great, good for you. Like, I'm glad. And it's one of those things where you're happy to see it because you know it's something that the culture needed. You know, a lot of people just like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy the fanciest cigar, the most expensive cigar, and I'm gonna have 50 million lighters." And I'm one of those people. Like, I use matches 99% of the time, but I do. I like lighters. I like different cutters, but you always have those staple pieces that you keep around. And I'm not a hat person. Yesterday was the first time I wore a hat, and like I don't even wear baseball caps, and it's partly because in the military I wore a hat all the time. I just didn't want to. So yesterday I was like, "Let me try this out." My girl got me a hat, and she's like, "You have to wear this." She's like, "It looks good on you," and I'm like, "Okay, but I'm not a hat person."
Yeah, that's why I kind of low key didn't recognize you at first.
Right,
I had
because
to look at you.
Yeah, because I never
Yeah.
wear a hat.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I got so many compliments on the hat yesterday, and I'm like, I get it. I understand why. And the hat is an extension of you. It's like a pair of shoes. It's like an,
Wow.
a designer belt or a watch where it's a statement piece. So you could be wearing a plain outfit, which was me. Even when I was, when I was doing private security things, I'd had a black suit, black tie, but my belt was always something designer, and my socks were always something like off the wall. So it's something that you never really see unless I'm sitting down, and I never sat down.
Yeah.
But it was something for me to give a little bit of myself without having it, without standing out. And I love the fedoras because it's literally like a peacock sitting on your head. You walk into a room and it doesn't matter. Like you can always pick out your fedoras over anybody else's.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they are just so unique. The one that sticks out in my mind the most is the Purple Rain.
Uh-huh.
That one, I saw that, and Art showed it to me, and I was like, so when are you getting this? And he was like, no, these are one of ones. I was like, damn, that sucks for you. Because he is like the ultimate Prince fan.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like...
Well, I made Art a Prince themed hat.
No, Art doesn't tell me these things.
I keep that to myself.
Have you worn it?
He probably walks around the house naked in it, and he never wears it out.
Naked purple.
Yep.
Because
He takes showers.
the fact that you told me you made it, I didn't know he got one.
It's still
Yeah.
popular.
It's over, what, a year and a half ago?
So I've never seen him in it. So those are his private moments,
Oh,
I guess, because
Yeah.
he wears hats often,
Uh-huh.
and I've never seen that one. So,
Yeah, I've worn it to dinner.
see?
Different things, but I've never worn it here. So, for the record, you never did say who this was sitting in between us. You realize that,
Oh, I was waiting for you.
don't you?
Because I know, like, this is the person that, like I said, you introduced me to her. So I want you to introduce her to everybody.
Well, it gives me great honor. Now, you have to tell me what you prefer, because I do like Illy.
Yeah. That only less than 5 people call me Illy. Ilona.
Because I've heard you say that before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. People know me as Ilona from Daytona. I'm not from Daytona,
yeah.
but it rhymes,
It
right?
does.
So you'll never forget that.
Really from Philly, which you're not from Philly either.
No. From Brooklyn, New York.
Yes.
Currently residing in Atlanta.
In the ATL.
ATL.
Yes.
How is that like?
So much to do. I was looking at a recent post of yours where you talked about the fact that people said there's some things to do, and you literally have to stop yourself.
Because there's so much to do.
There's always, I know there's always a cigar there. It doesn't matter whether it's Monday or Sunday. There's always something, cigar related, or even if it's not cigars, there's always just something going on.
Always.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, and so, one of the things with Atlanta is I lived in Atlanta 2015 to 2017, moved back up north to New York, and I vowed that I would never go back to Atlanta. I would never move back to Atlanta. I would visit all the time, yeah. And when the pandemic happened, one of my friends, I was living in Harlem, 600 square foot apartment, working remote, and one of my friends was like, hey, just come stay with me for a couple months until all this blows over, right? COVID. So I said, I kept thinking, it's going to be over in 2 weeks. It's going to be over in 2 weeks. It got to about 2-3 months in, and I started to go stir crazy. I had zero human interaction. And came to Atlanta May of 2020. I ended up buying a house about a month later, and I closed on it July. I think maybe today or within a couple days would be my 2-year closing anniversary.
Oh,
Congrats.
Yeah. And so I didn't tell family, I didn't tell friends. I kept it very much on the low.
Oh, you like
Job,
you're incognito.
Yeah. Yep. Job didn't know about it. And so at the time I was, just creating my own hats to wear because I was always a hat wearer. And obviously I smoked cigars for 7 years at this point. And I would go to, typical, because Atlanta was open during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, everything else was deserted except Atlanta. So I would go to the places.
Florida.
And oh yeah, that's right. And people would stop me all the time. Hey, oh my God, I love your hat. I love your hat. I love your hat. And I made it into an official business August of 2020, so almost 2 years. And so I got looped in with Atlanta Cigar Week as a vendor. That was my first vending experience. And then it really took off. And all these people from all these different places all over the world that I met was at that Atlanta Cigar Week 2020.
Which is crazy because that's something you were trying to go to, but there was so much uneasiness about it. We were all like, well, is it safe? And we all know as cigar smokers, like, you're going to be close to people.
Yeah.
Even though you're going to be far away, you're still going to be close. And that event in Atlanta was like, it was like you would think, it looked like the opening of Disney World or something. I mean, every event that I saw, there were just seas and seas of people.
Yeah.
And nobody was social distancing. Everybody was like, interacting and talking, and like there was nothing going on.
Yep, spitting in your face. not purposefully, right?
Right, but
little particles. And what's funny? I always said, I was like, cigar smokers don't get COVID.
You know what? Cigar Snob and I talked about that. A good friend of ours is an internal medicine physician. He was telling me one evening, and he's repeated this, that during COVID, the height of COVID, his cigarette smokers had about the same rate as everybody else, but his cigar smokers had a lower rate.
Yeah, I think there's something to it.
And he said, because, if you think about it, smoking a cigar is a breathing exercise. And what is the one thing that COVID attacked most was the upper respiratory system, the breathing function. So in his mind, he's thinking there's some correlation, even though it's not scientific, that people who are smoking cigars continuing to exercise their breathing apparatus in a more direct way, as opposed to just breathing, have lower rates.
I 100% agree with that because I had COVID when it first hit, and luckily for me, like I didn't even know I had COVID for 2 days because I just had intestinal issues. I didn't have any shortness of breath. I didn't have a fever or anything like that until like the third day. And they're like, we think you just got a stomach bug, so we're going to swab you. And then sure enough, I was literally out, and I go to the VA, so I was the first vet case of a gastrointestinal COVID that they've ever had. So I'm like, well, what do I do? And they're like, just go home. And I'm like, go home and do what? I live by myself. What am I going to do for 2 weeks? And they're like, just go home. You don't need to stay in the hospital because you don't have a respiratory issue. If you have breathing problems, then we just admit you to the ICU and just watch you and have you on oxygen. But your pulse ox is fine and everything. So I'm like, all right, fine. So I literally, for 2 weeks, I sat on my balcony and I smoked 3 to 4 cigars a day because there was nothing to do. I literally watched everything on Netflix. I couldn't have my kids come over to visit. Like I have cousins, so I would have picked them up, spend a couple days with them. I couldn't do anything. I was literally just a man on the island. And like that, the cigars kept me sane. Like it got to the point where even Art and I and Steve and a couple of guys, like we set up Zoom calls because I couldn't get out and everybody else was getting out smoking. So I still got to fellowship with my friends and we got to talk shit and hang out and smoke cigars, even though we weren't in the same room. It definitely kept me sane. And like you're saying, like the doctor we know, he was like, looking at all of the cases, like the cigar smokers, like obviously if you have other issues, like, you have diabetes, you have cholesterol issues, you have CHF, obviously, yes, those things are going to be worse.
Yeah,
but for the normal person who doesn't have any real disease, like smoking cigars definitely helped. So it was an interesting, it's still an interesting time because we're in that wane of it, but now they're saying that, there could be possible more cases going up because of people traveling and everything. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen. So I'm kind of getting used to the normality of life again. Like we're finally getting, like Florida's one of those hold my beer states where we're just like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I think Atlanta's like this.
Yeah.
Which is the inner city, not Georgia.
No.
Right, not Georgia.
Not Georgia, Atlanta.
So one of the things that you and I talked about briefly that I appreciated about you, since you and I have gotten to know each other, I talked to you yesterday about your creativity and the fact that you can just continue to take it to another level with these hats.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when I think about some of your backstory. You know, your parents were competitive ballroom dancers. Your brother and your aunt were painters. So you come from creative. So, so while it's awe-inspiring to me, and I appreciate what you do, this is who you are.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so when you come out like with, you know, the straw line and some of the other lines you come out with, you know, I've always appreciated creatives and where they draw and get their inspiration from and so forth. So.
And I think, you know, a lot of it has to do with a friend of mine who's like in the motivational speaking space. He talked about, you know, walking in your purpose, and when you find your purpose, it's almost like it's an easy path, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to follow someone else's. And so I think a part of it is how I've always led life is, you know, little on the edge, you know, a little safe, but for the most part, I like to try new experiences and do different things because, and I preach about it with, you know, friends and people I encounter all the time is you never know what you're going to step into, right? And so it was one of those things where, you know, it randomly happened. I walked into some store, I saw some stuff, and it just, you know, magically clicked for me. And I was like, hey, why not, right? So, and I go through life with anything of, hey, I'm going to just do it. Just like moving to Atlanta spontaneously, right? Hey, I'm just going to do it. If it doesn't work out, okay. If it does work out, great. Right? What's going to happen?
Yeah. You'll still be able to live and do things.
Yeah.
It's a matter of trusting yourself enough to have the experience, whether it fails or not, to want to be about the experience.
Yeah. And so, you know, what you had touched on earlier with, you know, different places to go in Atlanta and different things to do. So I have, you know, this one favorite little cigar shop in Atlanta. A client of mine owns. He bought from this Persian guy who owned it for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah. And so bought it about, you know, the guy was like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. Him and his business partner bought it out maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, something like that. And so, you know, I've seen it transform because, you know, they know a lot of people. And so now there's like, it's one of those where it's open 7 days a week. You can come in there anytime. They'll close, and, you know, they close anytime until the last person leaves. Sometimes I go and work from there. They open at 11. And so my thing is also creating, you know, and I can't say that I've opened up the path to anything. I think I'm trying to continue the path, especially with women cigar smokers.
I think for you, for the way I look at it is you've put a huge spotlight on it. Because it may have been opened up before you. I look at it as, especially in the design world, like for me, I look at it as like you are the pioneer.
Yes.
Well, see, and I don't see
it. And that's where you go.
Yeah.
No, and you wouldn't. And one of the reasons why you're a pioneer is because you didn't come from a tobacco family.
Right.
You didn't come from the Padrones or the Fuentes.
I wish.
Or the Davidoffs. You're doing it through fedoras. You're doing it through your hats. So it's a whole different avenue. Other people have done it going through, you know, jewelry. They've done it going through, you know, spirits, bourbon, whiskey, so forth, tequila, wine. You see athletes do it just because they've got the resources to say, hey, I want a cigar, so they pay somebody to make one for them, they throw their name on it. But you are doing it from an angle and a perspective.
You started from scratch.
That I've never seen anybody else do it from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like we have, you know, a good amount of, you know, good, real women cigar smokers
absolutely.
within Atlanta that
Absolutely.
But are they making badass fedoras?
And that's like I said, that's a separate. That's what puts the spotlight on it because a lot of the women.
She smokes a pipe.
I just started. I learned how to smoke a pipe a week ago.
I was like, I'm so through.
I just learned, and so yesterday I smoked it out there.
I saw you.
And I tried to do it a second time, and I don't know what it just wasn't.
Pipes are very finicky, and it takes you a while to get used to the process. So that's what happens. Like I used to smoke a pipe a lot, and for, to be honest, it just gets to that point of it's so much work to prepare it, to keep it going, to do it. You don't want to relight. You want to keep the same end burning, and it's just easier sometimes to just light a cigar and be done with it. It's like I'm still getting that experience. I'm not getting the total experience of sitting down and smoking your pipe for 45 minutes and enjoying it, but you're still getting that cigar or that pipe tobacco experience because you're still in the tobacco realm, which is going back to you, like you are in the tobacco realm because not only do you smoke cigars and smoke a pipe, but your target demographic or audience, whether you chose it or not, or they chose you, is the cigar community.
Yeah.
So you are now, to be honest with you, you are now synonymous with cigar smoking and the cigar culture, especially of Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because any picture I see in Atlanta, I can pick out. Like, you know, if you have guys like me, I wore my first fedora yesterday. It was just one, and it's a plain black fedora. That's it. I can always tell which one is yours.
Oh, me too.
Did you see the lady that was wearing mine
Yes.
yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, even when you're not in the picture, and I see events in Atlanta, I see. I know.
And the biggest, and then I'll say the biggest tell that I love it is the splash of paint. I think that is like literally your signature without being your signature. Like when you see that splash of paint a certain way, exactly. Like that's alone. I already know. Like you don't have to tell me. I don't have to see the rest of the hat. I don't have to see a feather on the hat. Like as soon as I see that splash of paint, I'm like, oh, I know where you got that. It's your calling card without having. You know, most painters sign their name very small, or they do something. That is the calling card that says, this is a Fedora design. Like, that's it.
You know what I love to hear? Anywhere that I go, and I travel a lot with my hats to different cigar weeks and stuff, or weekends. People will say, I've had both men and women, they say, man, I wore your hat and I got so many numbers. And I said, yes.
Because it is literally, like I said, it's a peacock.
Yeah.
You go into a room, and whether you're a man or a woman looking for a man or a woman, you see somebody in a hat like yours. It's like that is a whole different type of class and dress and style, period.
Yeah, because it exudes an air of confidence, it exudes sophistication, it exudes elegance, it exudes intelligence, because, you're out here.
Yeah. Putting on one of your hats, I liken it to when a guy goes to get a haircut. Like you're shaggy, you're like, oh, I got to get a haircut. You don't have confidence in yourself. By the time the barber turns you around and he takes the neck tape off, before he takes the apron off, and you look at yourself, you're like, I'm gonna kill these motherfuckers. It's that vibe. It's like you get that air of confidence. You're like, you put it on, and even with the one I had on yesterday, I was just like, all right, I'll wear it. And then like 3 people said something back to back, and I'm like, well, shit. I'm like, I'm gonna have to just. This might be my new thing now.
As soon as I walked in here today, the first person who said something to me was about the hat. And that was Tom.
Yeah, it's just like it's that extra boost of confidence that you sometimes need because we all like even in the times we're in now, like we all put on the happy face, but there's shit going on behind closed doors that you just can't let everybody see. You can't let everybody in. Yeah. So it's those little things that people comment on that like, oh, all right, I got it still. I'm good. Whether you're in a relationship, you're out of a relationship, whatever it is, situationship, like those little comments and compliments definitely put you in a better headspace. And it's like, if I can just wear this one article, and like you said, oh, I got so many numbers, or I got so many compliments, or somebody was hanging on my arm the whole night because they just love the hat. It's just, as an adult, it's amazing. Because, as young kids, or young adults, it's about the shoes, or it's about the Gucci belt, or the sunglasses, and the hat is purposeful. Yes, it's for style, but we go out to events and they're day events, and the sun is hot, and we're drinking alcohol. So keeping yourself cool, keeping the sun out, and it seems like such a basic item, but the way that you transform just a regular item to wear to cover your face or to shield your face from the sun and transform it into a piece of art that you're now walking around wearing. And everybody's like, where do you get that? How do you get that? You're like, oh, these are one-offs. You can't get. You're never going to get the same hat. Even it doesn't matter how much you pay her. It's on your website. It's everywhere. It's like These are one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not getting a duplicate. You will never see a duplicate of my hat. And I love that because it really speaks to not only your creativity, but just the fact that we're all individuals.
Yeah.
And you want to keep it individualized. You don't want the commercial shirt where you see, like you, for example, Gucci. You go out and you see 30 people in the same Gucci shirt.
Yeah.
If you go out to an event.
Yeah.
And maybe 1,000 people there, but you're going to see 30 people with the exact same shirt. You will never see anybody.
Still got the tag in the back because they
Oh my God.
Well, I wasn't going to go. See, you always got to go to the negative. But I was just trying to stay in the light.
So I have a funny story with the confidence thing. And so, before I still have my, little day job, before we had gone remote, the company's on Wall Street. And so I've always liked individuality in any kind of form, or, I don't like to look like everyone else.
Right.
And so I would be the person, you would see a sea of people, same suits, everyone looks the same. You can't even pick out.
Like robots.
Yeah, it's like robots. And so I would always, because I've always been a hat wearer, so I would always come in with, like, whether it's a newsboy cap or, fedora or any kind of hats. And I remember a friend of mine in the company, he was like, you really wearing that hat? And I was like, what do you mean, just a hat? He said, no, you need to be a confident person to wear a hat. And I looked at him, and I remember, no one has ever said anything like that, right? I just thought, hey, you feel like wearing a hat? Put on a hat. What's the big deal?
Right.
But how he made it seem
you
is that you
have
have to be a confident person to wear it.
You do.
And I said, okay, well, there's also something called fake it till you make it. Right? Put on a hat.
That was his perception.
And that's right.
Yeah.
And I remember that comment of his put that little fire in me, years to come of, okay, so you feel confident in a hat, right? Because it's not something a normal person does.
Yeah.
So how do I do it so that a quote-unquote normal person can walk around in something and feel confident, but feel unique and individual?
Like an individual, yeah, I get
like
it.
an individual.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of those little kind of off comments like that I've heard over the years, that's what made me get to the point where I am today of, hey, I want you to feel special,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And to feel, it could be similar hat or anything like that, but a certain style that's on your head is specific to you.
And I think one of the things you also bring to the table is the availability. People realizing that they can do this, as opposed to just seeing in a magazine or somebody's doing a cover shoot where they're wearing a hat or presenting somewhere. You can wear a hat for everyday purpose for no reason at all.
Yeah.
So your art and your creativity bring it to a point where it's accessible, it's available. Also adds to people stepping into a confidence of wearing one maybe they wouldn't have before, especially to Cigar Sound's point about the individuality component.
Yeah.
People know it's theirs. I wanted to ask you something. You've been doing cigar events lately. You've been traveling. You've been on the road.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you hanging out, spending a few days in my home city of Chicago. But culture-wise, what have you seen throughout some of the different cities that you've gone to? Right? Is there anything? Are there any commonalities, or have you seen certain areas where you're like, this area is more ripe for, say, cigars and hats in this area. We all know what Atlanta is. Atlanta's unique in its own. But what have you seen in some of your travels that maybe has caught your eye and said, oh, they're not really there, not really ready yet, or this place is ready to explode in terms of their overall awareness?
Overall experience, I didn't realize how spoiled we are in Atlanta.
Yes.
And I'm just talking about in terms of having tobacco and liquor within the same facility, right? Where Chicago as a whole, they're not allowed to have liquor and tobacco. Yeah, there's no places. I know in New York, when I was working in Wall Street, there was a cigar shop I would go during lunch around the corner, and they told me how in New York, unless the place is grandfathered in, right, that's when they can serve both. But the new ones can't.
A lot of northern cities are, I will just say it, are very anti-tobacco.
Yeah.
And it's odd, especially in a place like Chicago. It's an older city. You know, you had Al Capone and Prohibition and everything, but there just seems to be there was this negative stigma around.
But you have
cigars.
You have to remember, it's not cigars in itself. It's the tobacco, and it's what the tobacco stood for. Because when you think about the times of slavery and everything, cotton was a huge product.
Yeah.
But right up there with cotton was tobacco.
Yeah.
And so some of the Northerners, that was synonymous with slavery.
Yeah.
And it was something that they didn't agree with.
Yeah.
And then you also have the fact that the government as well, when you look at it, like look at hemp. Hemp is one of the most natural things, heals everything, does everything. The tobacco industry was the reason that hemp got outlawed. Because you could grow hemp. Hemp grows everywhere. It's a natural thing that just grows in the United States. But when they realized that there's a huge demand for cigarettes, and we can make all this money on cigarettes, if you have a plant that grows naturally everywhere and it's not illegal, why would I go out and purchase, tobacco when I could just literally go in my backyard, cut it off, dry it, and age it, and do it myself for free?
So it's two things.
So
it's control and it's money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And money is always either at the top.
That's the motivator for everything. It's like this is going to cut off a stream of revenue that is going to be huge in the future. They saw this a long time. They knew ahead of time that this is a product that, again, it's an addictive thing.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do it and just not do it.
Coming from Chicago, because I enjoyed cigars, but I didn't have them often. I didn't get to expand my palate the way I have since I moved to Florida. And I wish that some of these northern cities were more welcoming.
Yeah.
Because the audience is there. The market is there.
The
revenue opportunity is there.
The other problem is you don't have anybody necessarily challenging the old guard either.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, we'll just build our own place, or we'll make our own speakeasy, or we'll just do parties and events at private places so that we can do both. Instead of saying, you know what, let's challenge the norm and say, hey, this is a stupid rule. This law was made 200 years ago or 150 years ago. It serves no purpose. Like how many laws right now are still in effect that have no bearing on anything?
Yeah,
and they're some of the dumbest rulings ever.
Yeah, don't get me started. Not even tobacco. Texas just enacted a law that was back in 1852 after the repeal of Roe versus Wade. So it's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, you have even in Arizona. Arizona just passed a law on Friday saying that you cannot be within 8 feet of a police officer with a camera to film them.
Even on public property?
Yes.
That's public property.
Yep.
Citizens should have
like
the right.
Simple shit.
That's so stupid.
Like it's like we're going back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And it's so scary because, you think we're so much more educated than the generations before us, but we are scared to challenge their thought process because they had an antiquated thought process. I mean, if you think about it, shit, women weren't even allowed to go out without their husbands,
Yeah.
100 years ago.
Yeah.
Like that, you were a harlot or a whore or whatever. If you were seen out in public talking to a man that wasn't your husband or wasn't your brother or father, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and it wasn't until 1974 that a woman couldn't get a checking account on her own without a male signature.
Think about that.
1974?
That's less than 50 years.
Yeah, what about the school system, right? The education system, that hasn't changed.
No. And it's scary because you have, and at this day and age, we have such a vast amount of knowledge that we can access via the internet. On a worldwide scale, not just in the U.S. Like we can tap into resources all over the world. And I feel like we use other cultures and other people to better ourselves, but only in a way that we can control.
Yeah, and for people who aren't sure about the sources on the internet, you got Amazon. You can buy all of what you want.
Exactly.
It's self-educated.
Yeah.
You don't even have to buy them. You don't have to actually ship it. They have Audible.
Yeah.
I don't even buy books anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I don't have the space.
Yeah.
Because I love to read.
And they still have things called libraries.
Well, those are antiquated now too. Like libraries, I've noticed even the libraries, they're like doing, I remember in the summertime they would do like reading programs for kids and stuff like that. Now they're doing it because people are homeschooling their kids and the libraries are coming back into, popularity because some of these people don't believe everything they read on the internet.
Yeah.
So they do want to go and get a hard copy and hold the facts in their hand and show their kids or teach their kids like, hey, this is real.
Yeah, but education is the key to so much of this.
Yeah.
The more educated the populace is, the better the decisions that they make, which also means people have to exercise their right to vote. You've got a small but powerful minority trying to control the larger majority, and that's just ridiculous. But I won't get political. But I got political.
Yeah.
But
But
it is what it is.
I've always viewed money, right, as hey, use it to your advantage. Meaning, in terms of for the good, right? Of hey, how do we have these issues with certain topics that you guys just brought up, right? How do you change, right? It has to start with you. And it's, everyone always talks about, well, I want to be, a millionaire, this, that, I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay, but, and this is just speaking on me, right? My life purpose. To me, I've always viewed, hey, I want to get to a certain point in life, with a certain amount of money. So now I can have some form of control to implement certain things in the world, right? Because I view myself as a vessel of information. I've always loved to read. I always, listen to different podcasts, audibles, all of that. Have conversations with different people all the time. And why do I need to just hold on to this information, right? It's about, hey, how do I spread it to other people, to teach, train, all of that. And so
be a mentor.
Yeah, and so now this, I want to link it to cigars, right? And so I started hosting ladies' night once a month at the small cigar shop.
You can say the name. You're fine.
Well, it's one of my favorites, J Cigars in Atlanta, located on West Midtown area. And so every last Thursday of the month, I host ladies' night. We'll have liquor sponsor, cigar sponsor. But the purpose with that is to bring, I have my group chat with all my women cigar smokers. Actually, there's a lot of men that come too, but the purpose.
Well, it is Atlanta.
Of course.
The purpose of it is not just, hey, let's sit together and gossip.
It's network.
Right. The purpose is let's fellowship with each other. I have to say, hey, you guys hey, let's introduce ourselves. Hey, what do we all do? How can we benefit from each other? How can we help this person? I just, came from Chicago 2 weeks ago, met this girl who, her brand is called LBD Lifestyle. And so she's the one that does Female Cigar Smokers Matter.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Nice.
Yeah, the t-shirt, I got the t-shirt, I got these pins from her, and I was like, oh man, I put some of them on hats. And I had invited her. I was like, hey, are you available, that Thursday of last month? She was like, yeah, because she's based out of Atlanta, and she was a vendor.
Nice.
At my ladies' night. And so the purpose, of all this is, I want to be some form of positive link, positive impact, right? So to me, it's more than just cigars. It's more than just hats. I love bringing people together. I love putting people in different positions to win. I like creating things to then loop in other people into it. To be like, oh, artist's doing this. Oh, and then you wanted to do this. Hey, let me, connect you guys together. And I think that should be the purpose, right? Because everything should be served on a higher purpose versus just, hey, let's sit around and bullshit.
Yeah, and it's not. And I think that the great thing about you too is that yes, you're winning, and you're amassing wealth and you're amassing power, but at the same time, you're saying, hey, let me spread the wealth, let me spread the power. If I can educate, even if out of those 50 people that come, if I can educate one person, and they can run with their idea with the knowledge that I've given them on how to grow it or how to expand, and then they do it, and that one person tells 50 people, and only one person does it, you're still winning. Because as long as somebody is taking in your knowledge and saying, you know what, I needed a new way to do this, I needed to repurpose this and figure out how I can make it work to grow, and you can help them grow, that's a win for you. Whether it brings you money or fame or wealth or notoriety, at the end of the day, that person's going to say, you know what? I was stuck in this place and I went to this networking event.
Yeah.
So I met this woman.
Yeah.
She does hats, but she's also in all these different types of groups and cultures. And guess what? She gave me an idea.
Yeah.
Or she helped me repurpose my idea.
That's called
and now
influence.
I'm on another level.
Yeah.
And then now I want to do the same thing. And I want to bring more women in. And I want to bring more men in. And I want to help them level up so that it's not just me. Because now we clearly have the same ideals. So now when we come to the table and we say we want this to change, it's not I want this to change. It's we as a collective. And you have 50 to 100 or 200 people standing behind you. And not only are you having voices, but now you have money, which is the real power. And you have money
then
to
that's
say,
the influence.
right, we can say, no, this is why we're going to do it. This is the money that's going to fund it. This is what's going to help push it through. And this is what we want to happen. And guess what? That's how the world works. And unfortunately, it's not always about what's in the best interest for everybody. It's what can be done for me to make your dream possible and bring it alive. And I think that, like, between Atlanta and I have 4 groups of women that regional women that I love for cigar smoking. There's the Atlanta women. There's the women of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area where I grew up. There is the Texas women, and then there are the Cali women. And those 4 groups of women, I mean, even if cigar smoking out of the picture, those 4 groups of women, you probably have the smartest, strongest, and most notable women in their fields, respectively, in those 4 regions. Yeah. Like, I have met some women that I wouldn't even think smoke cigars. I've met politicians. I've met the way makers of policy, the lobbyists. I've met some women, and I'm like, so what, we sit down and, all the pleasantries are going, like, so, what is it that interests you? What do you do in life? And they're like, oh, well, I lobby for this. Or, oh, I'm the head neurosurgeon at this hospital. You're like, shit. Like, cigars have now crossed that barrier of...
This is why female cigar smokers matter t-shirt.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you realize that, for me, and it was hard because I'm from South America, so coming to the States was a very difficult thing for me, and getting, finding my identity in the culture, and being able to see, like, even for me, at 19, I was deployed and went overseas and never smoked cigars. My grandfather died of emphysema from smoking cigars and cigarettes. Oh, wow. So at a young age, I was like, I'm never doing that. Like, that's crazy. Went on a deployment. I'm the youngest kid. Everybody else is like in their mid-30s. They've got kids. I'm 19. And every day they go to the coffee shop and they smoke their cigars and they drink their coffee because they can't drink alcohol. And halfway through my rotation, my first sergeant's like, you need to go and hang out with those guys. They're your team. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't smoke. He's like, what do you mean? I don't smoke. I was like, I've never smoked marijuana. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never smoked a cigar. I was like, I just don't like it. I think it's a horrible thing. Nobody should do it. And he was like, regardless. He's like, now it's an order. You're going to go and hang out with them. And so we're sitting there in Macedonia. It's like 90 degrees at 8:30 at night, and they're smoking cigars. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll try it, whatever. So they give me my first cigar, which is a Romeo and Juliet Churchill, Cuban. And I take a puff and I cough, and everybody's laughing at me. I'm like, all right, fuck you guys, I'm leaving. And they're like, no, just sit down. So I take another puff, and I blow out, and I realize that all your problems, all the issues, everything that was negative in the day goes away with the smoke. And I have not put cigars down since. Wow. It's been almost 23 years.
I would say 40-something years.
But it's been almost 23 years for me. And it was one of those things that it's a door opener because I would have never met Art. We've known each other for almost 4 years now. 4 years.
And he didn't speak to me when he first started to...
Yeah, because I was the only black guy at the shop.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, who's this other black guy? He's taking my... Like, we're in Winter Park. I'm like, it's my territory. Like, I peed on all these trees.
Uh-huh.
And he just comes in and he's just normal self. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Everybody's like, oh, Art's so great. He's so great. I'm like, fuck Art. I don't know him. Like, who's this guy? And then we finally sit down and talk. And it's like, he's from up north. He's from Chicago. I grew up in Maryland and D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a lot of similarities. He's a little bit older than me, but he's that older brother figure. Because I'm a hothead. So every now and again, I'm like, hey, I need to talk. Or I text him like, where you at? And he's like, oh shit. And before I can even put the phone down, the phone's ringing. He's calling me. He's like, what's going on? Where are we meeting for a cigar? We need to talk. And so it's like that, finding that fellowship.
Yeah.
He's done the same for me.
And it's amazing because, especially in the world of women run the world, to be honest. Yes, the guys look like they have the power, but like truly, like I said, they've always been in the background. You look at every great president, every great dictator, you look at everything. There's always a woman in the back that's really running the show. She's in his ear saying, no, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And they make it look like it's their idea or it's their thought. Yeah. But legitimately.
In countries that are run by women, have less conflict in terms of war.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just what it is. And to see them in that.
I think whether it's too much.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
But then to see the powerful women that we have in our society and in our world take over that old guard of, because before, like when I went to cigar shops at the age of 22 and 23, I was literally the only person of color in the cigar shop. Like I'd walk in and be like, oh, we don't have backwoods. And I'm like, I'm not here for that. But it was always the stuffy old guard of, the doctor, the lawyer, the politician, the police officer. They're in their suits or in their khakis and their button-up shirts, and they're sitting still and they're smoking on the leather high-back chairs with the wood. And I love the aesthetic, but it was the people that just weren't welcoming.
Yeah.
And then as cigar culture turned.
When do you think that was? What year?
I'm going to say honestly, and it was before my time in the urban cities, but I'm going to say Jonathan Drew, to me, like in 92, he changed the cigar industry. He came in and everybody laughed at him. All the old guard laughed at him like, acid cigars, flavored cigars, you'll be broke in 2 years. You'll never make it. We're going on 20-something years now. He's got the biggest manufacturing plant in the world. Wow. He's got the highest name notoriety among cigar smokers. Like, yes, everybody knows about Davidoff, and they know about Padron, and they know about Ramon Alonez, and all. But when you talk about a commercially available cigar that never has a manufacturing, it's never limited quantities. It's a full production cigar. Drew Estate is up there. Everybody knows Drew Estate. I mean, you can get Drew Estate cigars in a gas station. You can get them in a head shop.
You can't get any cigars in Australia, though. Did you know that?
That sucks.
What?
Yeah. It's a law. Just fun fact.
That's impressive.
And to ship them in, it's probably like twice the cost of a single cigar.
Which is like Alaska. They're only allowed, when you're visiting Alaska, you're only allowed to bring 2 boxes of cigars per person with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the tobacco tax in Alaska is something like 85 or 90%. So you thought New York was high with the 40 to 50%? Like, no. Think about that.
Wow.
So you're paying double the cost of a cigar. And it's funny because living in Florida, like living in D.C., I was smoking, but I was only there for about 2 or 3 years before I decided to move to Florida. So Florida's like Atlanta. We're right next to all of these great island countries who produce cigars. Yeah. So there is no holding back. Like we get people are like, oh, that's a limited edition. And like, no, it's a regular production cigar down here. But because they don't sell as well up north because people only stick to their certain groups, they're not really willing to expand. Like the boutique cigars of today, they would not last in a shop up north or out west because everybody wants they're label whores to a certain extent.
And you got to factor in costs too. A lot of northern cities like Chicago, they tax tobacco at such egregious rates that you've got to make a decision.
A $10, a $12 Padron, a 2635 that I smoked. It's $12 to $13 anywhere in Florida. It was $22 when I went up to Virginia. This was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I'm like, wait. I'm like, what's the price? And he's like, oh, 22.80. And I'm like, for what? I was like, I only bought one of these. And he's like, yeah.
Did you take note of the
And he said,
sales tax in downtown Chicago? Did you notice that?
what's that?
10.75%.
On what source?
No, just in
On anything in downtown?
Oh, really?
They want to go to 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
10%?
Don't pay attention to
10.75% downtown Chicago.
Because I have one of them rewards credit cards.
It's crazy. You literally have to. You literally have to factor that in when you buy something.
And then don't forget the tip and everything, like if you're going out to dinner and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, okay, so in Florida, right, when did you guys start to notice a shift with more women coming in?
I would say, for me, it was about 2015. 2015.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I think a lot of the manufacturers, I even give credit to Espinoza. Like Eric's just one of those guys. He's just a regular guy. He doesn't want to be that, super stuffy guy with the ascot. And he's like, nah, bro. He's like, I want to wear my sneakers and my jeans and my t-shirt. And that's like, I want to be. And I would think it was those guys who were so welcoming and inviting and saying, oh, your lady smokes cigars? Well, bring her out. You're like, oh, no, bring her out. Like they were him, Jonathan, Drew. I mean, they were very, very upfront in saying, like, no, my wife smokes with me all the time. My girlfriend smokes. Like, this is not just a guy's thing, because we looked at it from the American standpoint of it's a guy's thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in every Caribbean culture, in every Spanish culture, women smoke.
Yeah.
Like, let's not get it twisted. Women smoke.
Yeah.
And I've told people, I'm like, I have some women cigar smoker friends that will fucking embarrass you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
They will
many
smoke.
women smoking when I was in Cuba.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
and not
Absolutely.
smoking, Connecticut or
No.
smoking,
No.
Maduros and heavy shit.
Going back to Lindsay.
Yeah.
Going back to, let's say, Ambitious Giggles.
Yeah.
A lot of these women who smoke, like, they smoke cigars that I smoke. And I say that to say I'm Habano related, I am Maduro related. Like, I want a double or triple Lajero. I want something that's going to punch me. I'm not a coffee drinker. So I get my little boost. Now, I've gotten into it. My girlfriend loves coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I got her a new Keurig. I bought like 4 in the past 2 years because she goes through them that quickly. Like the commercial size.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're on the point of, all right, we've got fresh beans and a grinder, and then we make coffee. So now, I was telling Art the other day, I was like, I've literally had a cup of coffee every day for the past 2.5 weeks.
Oh.
Because it's just something about the freshness of it I like.
Have you smoked a cigar with coffee?
Yes.
Yes.
That is now my morning thing.
Okay.
Before it was I would have a cup of coffee once a week. It would be on a Saturday morning. I'd have a little bit of dark chocolate, my little dark chocolate bar chip, and I'd throw it in my coffee, no sugar or anything like that. And I'd sit outside, I'd smoke my cigar or two, and sip my coffee, listen to the news, and just get myself ready for the weekend. Now it's one of those things where now it's, all right, I'm on the patio at 7 in the morning. I've got my cigar, I've got my coffee, I've got the ceiling fan going, and I'm just relaxing, zoning out for 40 minutes. And I'm like, oh, now I got to get up and go take a shower and get ready for work. But it's that power and that, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, it puts you into a whole different level. And the whole, your thinking is different. You're in a different zone because the combination of that coffee and the tobacco, it just changes your mindset, and it's great. And the women that I smoke with sometimes, I'm like, dang, it's too early for that. They're smoking a digger from LFD, and I'm like, I want to smoke a medium to medium full. I don't want to start my day like getting punched in the mouth. Today's not that day. Usually I'm that guy. And they smoke some cigars. I tell my friends, I'm like, look, keep thinking that women smoke, quote unquote. I say, there's no such thing as a girly cigar, number one. I was like, your palate is your palate.
Yeah.
Whether you like flavored cigars or you like natural cigars, that doesn't make you less of a man, more of a woman. It really doesn't. It's all about individuality, especially in cigars. I'm like, people look at me and they're like, you smoke flavored cigars? Yeah. There are those days, like when I can't get my coffee in. The If I can't get my coffee in, guess what? Tobacco Speciale Dolce.
You know, all those flavored cigars give me a headache.
The Dolce, with
Yeah.
the tobacco one, the Dolce, I really like, and it's because it really is like a cafe con leche. Like it, from the time, even just licking the tip, you're like, okay, this is coffee and cream. This is what it is.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
had one that I might challenge you on too. I'll give you U.S. Sol.
yes, that's another nice one. Even for new cigar smokers, one of the ones I bring out is the Brick House Natural, Connecticut, and it has a little sweet tip to it. It's almost like a sugary coffee tip, but it's a full blown Connecticut cigar, but they just have that sweet tip on it. And I think that is what is missing in getting people into cigars, because you have tobacconists who, I don't call them tobacconists, I call them retail cigar clerks, because they don't, number one, they don't have the degree from Tobacconist University. And it's free if you work at a cigar shop. All you have to do is get a letter from your owner or manager. You mail it into them, and then you take the course for free online.
Oh, wow.
The only cost is the cost of the book, which is like $70, but it's literally the Bible of cigars. So literally from seed to full-blown cigar, everything is in there for every different blend, every region. It is the Bible of cigars. So I really think, like, you should have that. That's not, it's a free, like, what's it going to cost you, $70? So what? You get to keep that book for the rest of your life and the knowledge that you get from it.
But why would you not want to be an expert in something that you're working in?
There you go.
Because for them, it's not a career, it's a job. That's the bigger issue is, oh, this is just a job to get me paid. Yeah. Like, you should never go into anything. I don't even care if you work at McDonald's.
And look at this now on Amazon, the tobacconist handbook is $17.
Oh, and I have that second one. Cigar book.
Yeah, that first one is, I have it in my car. I take that handbook goes with me everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. Because I'm like, I've been in cigars from smoking them for 20-something years, manufacturing and designing for over, 15 years now, 16 years. And it's one of those things that you never know everything.
Right.
You're always going to be a student, no matter what it is. You can invent something. There's always going to be a better way to do it, or some kink that you can work out to make it run smoother. So it's, for me, like, I've read that book at least 20 or 30 times. But guess what? I always find something. Every time I read it, there's at least 1 to 2 things that I pick up that I didn't know before, that I'm like, oh, this makes more sense because I've had the practical hands-on knowledge of dealing with cigars, and now reading it in a text form, I'm like, oh, this makes sense why this goes with this. So you're always picking up and always learning, and it's one of those things where, like you said, why don't you want to be an expert in the job that you have? Even if it's a job and not a career. My biggest thing is working as a tobacconist in a shop was, I never want somebody to say, hey, how does that cigar taste? And I say, I don't know.
Right.
Even
or
if it's,
just make up something.
Even if or read off the card. Oh, it has hints of cocoa and Gatorade and melon from the south region of, like, bullshit. Like, no. Just tell me, like, is it peppery? Is it heavy? Is it mild? Does it have a creamy flavor? Is it smooth? You know, like, my favorite question is, so how many dimensions does a cigar have? Like, I'll ask a tobacconist that, how many dimensions is it? And they're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, okay, you can't help me, thank you. Yeah. Because it's either one-dimensional or it's not.
I've asked them what patolas we have. And they're like, what's that? You don't know what patolas is?
No.
You know what sizes are? You know, you can't tell me, is it a Cameroon, Mexican San Andreas? What's the structure? What's the aging process? You know? But,
like, I've studied cigars to the point where art is still amazed at this shit that I do. Like, somebody's like, oh, this is a Cuban. And I'm like, okay. And I smell it. And I'm like, no, this is a dog turd, sorry. And they're like, no way, tell me it's a Cuban. And I'll pull out my knife and cut it down the middle. And I'm like, this is all scrap tobacco. Like, this is all scrap tobacco from a Dominican factory or a Nicaraguan factory with no long filler. You know, like, I can't believe, I was like, you paid too much for a $2 cigar. Don't be mad at me. Like, the cigar costs $2, you pay $25 or $50 for it.
my Brazilian
I'm just educating you and letting you know.
What's going on, John?
Hey, what's going on, sir? You didn't get a tan today. What happened?
Yeah, no. Well, I'm a little sweaty.
Thanks.
Yeah, the SPF 100 or something.
Yeah. Just come and say, hey, and about your podcast.
Oh, no problem.
But I will say this. I know you've got things to do.
Oh, yeah, you got to get on the road.
So we will close the show.
I got time.
Oh,
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's at 7 o'clock.
All right.
We got
all right. Why
time.
you trying to kick her out of here? What's wrong with you?
No.
Just trying to be, see, because I didn't know if you had anything to do in between.
I have nothing to do.
All right.
But chill with you guys.
So what's next for you?
Okay, so the one thing that August, when I'm going to organize, my marketing manager's here out with me, so she filmed me smoking my pipe yesterday, and she posted it. And so a lot of my cigar smoking girlfriends said, "Well, I want to try it." And so I'm going to organize. So I'm going to organize. There's a how do you say it? Tobacconist. Tobacconist.
Yep.
He was the one that taught me how to smoke a pipe. He's in Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
And he does pairings, like cigar pairings.
That's nice.
So me and him have been talking about. I said, you know what? If I get a group of women together, would you teach us how to smoke a pipe? And so I had a good number of women. They say, yeah, I'm interested. And so probably for August, I'm going to organize something like that.
And that's what I've been trying to, like, Art and I have been trying to organize for like the past 2.5 years. It's like literally, and it's not just for women. I just want like a cigar education class. Like I love talking about cigars.
Yeah,
I love educating people.
Yeah, even the basics.
It's
Vodka,
just-
fill a wrapper.
It's just what?
It's
What
just
excuse
finding,
are you gonna give me?
honestly, it's the location, finding a location because
Yeah.
everybody has stuff going on,
Okay.
especially in the summer months.
Okay.
So like that's the biggest thing now is, and I told them like my thing is I want to do it when football season starts.
What's that, fall?
Yeah, because number one, the temperature's a lot better.
Mm.
You know, it's just a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
More things outside.
But you can do, we can do a lot more outside because we're in Florida. Like I don't mind smoking cigars indoors for certain purposes, but that's one of the biggest reasons I moved from DC to Florida. I woke up on Thanksgiving morning, 2009, and I walked outside at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was in basketball shorts and a white beater, and I had a cigar in my hand, and it was 70-something degrees, and I was like, why the fuck would I go back up to the frozen tundra and have to shovel snow and deal with dirty ice and that was it. Literally woke up that morning and was like, you know what? Called my parents and I was like, yeah, so I'm gonna fly back up and move my stuff down. I'm staying.
Oh, wow.
And that was it.
Okay.
And but I like that fall era because there's so much going on, but we also need that release. Like you got school starting, you got the kids going back to school, you have all their activities, but as parents, we don't get a time to relax per se. So even if it's just that 1 hour or 2 hours we can steal away on a Saturday morning, watching college football and me teaching you how to cut a cigar and light a cigar and explaining the different sizes and things like that. That's one of those things that.
So I have a question / proposal for you.
Mm-hmm.
DC Smoke Week is coming up. I think it's September 7th to the 10th.
Yes.
Do you plan on going?
You know what?
Because
I don't see why not.
the proposal that I have is I know the organizers, right? And so if you want to do some kind of educational experience,
I would love that.
right?
Oh.
So I'll speak to them about it.
Absolutely.
And I can see DC through your eyes too.
Yeah, that's my old stomping grounds. I really grew up there.
And last year was awesome.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I was kind of jealous. But yeah, no, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, because I think the thing is with, I love the fact that, so Atlanta Cigar Week was the first that kind of like kickstarted, and now
Mhm.
other cities are doing
Yeah,
it.
I think Philly's is this weekend.
No, Philly
Or
passed.
it's past. Okay,
Yeah, that was.
because I know I still
That's
see
right,
stuff
you
about
work
Philly Cigar Week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went straight from Philly and I shipped all my hats to Chicago first.
Oh wow.
'Cause I had
Oh,
a
yeah.
day in between.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
And
you're
I
a road warrior. You're like a cigar rep right now.
Yeah.
You're just all over the place.
Yeah.
And what's great about it is that it's a lot of similar vendors and people that I know. And so any city that I go to, I may go by myself,
But you're still.
but I know a lot of the people, and so and a lot of like DC, Atlanta, and all the stuff is coming up. I think Kansas City is trying to do something now too.
Nice.
Yeah, I think September or October.
That's a good time of year.
Yeah, and so lost my train of thought. My thing is, I love the fact that now other cities are kind of taking off with it because it's now giving experiences to people,
Mhm.
right? And I think at a certain point now it's, hey, how can we create something new, or how can we adjust this temperature here or adjust that temperature there. So I think the educational aspect would be pretty
True.
cool.
So that's
Especially in light of the fact that earlier this week, a federal judge ruled against the FDA. The FDA wanted to put a ban on flavored
I saw that.
cigars and cigarettes,
Yeah, exactly.
and that was ruled unconstitutional. So the good thing is that
they're still doing
with
something
more,
right.
with more exposure to people, they can influence policy.
Yeah.
So, and knowledge is power. They can't take it from you. So,
And that's the thing, like, you have a lot of people who are in power, but they don't necessarily have experiences like this. So,
no, they don't know.
and then also for the fact of traveling. Like, I love to travel. I've traveled since I was a kid. My parents never bought me a lot of clothes or video games. It was, no, your summer we're going to go. Like, I remember my 13th birthday. Oh, no, I was turning 14. Or 13, I can't remember. Whatever year Euro Disney opened up, my parents took me to Europe. My sister and I to Europe. And we spent a month and a half in England and France. And got to go to Euro Disney for the opening ceremonies and everything. And that's something that I still have a memory of almost 30 years later.
I never knew that.
Huh?
I never knew that.
Yeah. Like that. That was one of those things that my parents were like, no, we're not just going to sit at home and you guys are going to, just waste away the summer. We're going to travel. So we went like 96. We went to the Olympics in Atlanta. And I got, I'm from Guyana, and we had a boxer who was supposed to win the gold medal. And so there was so much influx of money and pride and everything that literally everybody who was Guyanese from New York, D.C., everywhere, they all converged on Atlanta. And so we got the true Atlanta experience. Like, I got to go to the Coca-Cola factory. I got to go to all the museums. I did everything that Atlanta had to offer. I got to go to the underground Peachtree. I got to do all of that as a kid. And, you look at it, and not a lot of people get those. They get those experiences as adults. And that was one of those things that I love my parents for, is that I got to see the world as a kid. Like, I didn't have to watch it on TV. And these different cigar weeks are pulling people in. Like, even this weekend, we have an event down here this weekend. We got people from Tampa, we got people from D.C., we got people from Delaware that came down.
South Carolina.
It's amazing that this one little thing, this cigar, has attracted so much notoriety and attention that we're willing to travel to places we've never thought to go or never wanted to go, just to fellowship with other people that like this.
Like, you're spending thousands of dollars, right?
Like,
for
imagine
a flight,
airfare, hotel, food, the rental
then you're
car.
paying for the tickets, right?
Yeah, and then the events.
And the most important expense, time.
Yeah, you're giving up your time.
Yeah.
Because you could be at home saving $1,000 or $2,000 and just doing your regular thing at home, but you've left your home. You've gone to another state, another city, another country, and now you're engrossing yourself in their culture. So not only are you picking up new stuff about cigars, but you're learning about a different culture, because all cigar cultures aren't the same. You have the black cigar culture, you have Hispanic cigar culture. There's so many different things, and they intermingle between the cities that they're in. Because even though you have the black cigar culture of Atlanta, it's different from Philly, it's different from New York, it's different from Chicago, it's different from D.C., it's different from L.A. Like, there are those little twinges that you can now pick up on and say, oh yeah, these guys do it a different way, and it's pretty cool. Or these guys do it this way, I don't like it, but I can see why they're into it. So you get to pick up more knowledge, you're always learning.
And look at the two fastest growing cigar segments in the country: people of color and women.
I tell people, I've been telling you for years, like, women are 50% of the market. And if you don't know it, you're stupid.
It was funny. I met this lady last night, and she's a pipe smoker, and we were asking her questions, and she said she's been smoking cigars for 24 years.
Hey.
Her husband never smoked cigars.
Okay.
I think about 7 years ago, her husband just all of a sudden picked up. He wanted to get into it. She said, and she got mad. She's like, "That's my thing, right?" And then that's when she picked up pipe smoking. She's like, "You can have your cigars, and now I'm gonna have my pipes."
And I think it's
a lead. I love that.
and it's interesting because you look at it and you see, like, a lot of guys come to the lounges by themselves, but when there's an event, they'll bring their significant other.
Right.
And I'm like, don't just wait for the events to bring her.
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, my girlfriend does not smoke cigars. However, when I go out, if I like, other than like meetings for the show or something like that, like if I'm going out to smoke a cigar, like I take her with me. And she's like, well, you know, I don't smoke. And I'm like, it's not about the smoking. I was like, it's just having you around. Like, that's our thing. We don't have a lot of time to ourselves. We got kids, you know, so it's one of those things where it's like, all right, we got to wait till 9 or 10 o'clock when the kids knock out and the 14-year-old's up so we can sneak out 5 minutes down the road for a quick drink and a cigar just to decompress. Because we're in the house, you know, with the kids all the time, so there's no real space for us. So I tell guys all the time, like, bring your woman out for a cigar and just bring her outside so she's not engulfed in the smoke if she doesn't like it. But you have to open up your world to your partner.
Yeah.
Like, they may not like it, but they'll appreciate that the time that you reserve for yourself, per se, is the time that you're like, I'm willing to share this time with you. Because, you know, we all do shit. Like, I go shopping with her. I hate it. I detest it. Like, I'm the guy that's like, I need this and this size, and I'm ready to go to the register. I'm not looking through stuff. You know, like, now, my shirts, I'm very particular about the shirts that I wear. So I've always been like that eccentric person. So the shirt, but you tell me, oh, we got to go shopping for a suit. All right, let's get this. Let's socks met. Let's go. Like, I don't. And she's the one that she can be in there for 2.5 hours in one store. And so I'm there, and I'm like on my phone or I'm doing something, but I'm there. And so it's like getting that time together to spend, to really, you're bonding without talking. You know, and I think that's so important, even in our friendships. Like, sometimes Art and I sit and smoke a cigar with Steve, and nobody's saying anything for 45 minutes. We're just like, literally the conversations, so how's that cigar going? Oh, it's good. Yeah, it's got this note. Oh, I haven't tried that one. Yeah, you know what? Here's another one. Here's one. Try it. And that's it. But we're just literally, we're sitting down, and we're outside, we're in public,
and we got a vibe.
And we're just there. And it's that fellowship that I think is so important, especially in the age we're in, as far as how as crazy this world is now. Like, being able to just pause and sit with like-minded people and just not even have to. You can communicate without opening your mouth.
Well, especially if it's too loud in the place too.
Yeah,
That's not healthy.
Yeah, it's too loud.
Which is why I love being outside, because it's, you know, it doesn't matter how big a cigar lounge is. Like, if you pack it with 50 or 100 people and you've got alcohol involved, people are talking louder, you've got a DJ in the background, you know, it's just, and then you've got all the smoke. Like, no matter how great your smoke system is, it's going to be smoke. You know, that's just what it is.
So, I have a interesting topic to bring up. You know, we speak about how there's so many women in the, you know, who smoke cigars now too. And so, you know, being around a lot of different women and, you know, all different age brackets, I'm shocked. This is quality women, great job, but they're retired, still in their field, that are single.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things is, it's interesting because the cigar community, as I would say, you meet anywhere that you go, no matter what city, you go to a cigar spot, you will meet quality, right? It's quality people.
Yeah.
And it surprises me every day. I don't know why, it still surprises me, of why there's so many of these great quality women that are single.
2 reasons.
Yeah.
The majority of men that are in the age group, might not be the desired age group of the women, but are in the age group of those women, are one of 2 things. They're either married already themselves, or they're just whores because they've been jaded, they've been hurt, and they're like, nah, I don't want to settle down with anybody. I'm just gonna have my little stable of women, and I'll rotate through them, and that'll be it. The other part is that, and it's not a dig on women, but they've spent a lot of time honing themselves to be these professionals and to be viewed as a professional, because they've never been, it's never been because you're a woman, it's never been, let me say it like this, that you're a woman so you can't do your job. That's always been it. So they've always had to work twice as hard as every man that whether they're more educated or not, they've always had to work twice as hard just to get half the recognition.
Yeah.
So they're so hyper-focused on being the best professional they can be and being at the top that a lot of those times they pick up the traits of men. And those traits of men are not attractive. Like, I want an aggressive woman, but at the same time, I want somebody that still can be submissive and still can let me lead. If you can't let me lead, I don't want to be with you. you know, and it's that, and it's a sad fact, but it's they've always had to be the breadwinner, they've always had to be the leader, they've always had to be, and I'm not going to say the man in the relationship or the man, but they've always had to have the male characteristics in order to succeed and get to the level they wanted to be at in their profession. And once you do it for so long, it then bleeds into your personal life. And so they had these strong attributes and these, you know, these strong opinions. And for a guy, you know, for a guy who doesn't care about those things, it's easy to be with somebody like, oh, I don't care how she talks to me. But there's a certain level of pride and a certain level of respect. Like my girlfriend and I had that conversation all the time. Like, you know, before me, she was single for over 10 years.
Wow.
So she owns her own dance studio. She owns a line of clothing. She was the flagship person for the dance community for Valencia and UCF.
Wow.
She was also in a girl band that worked with NSYNC like from the age of 16. So she's always been around these powerful people. And that was one of those conversations we had to have, like, hey, I get that you've always had to be the alpha because you were by yourself. Completely understand it and respect it. But now, you have one. You never have to speak up if you don't want to. Like, if you want to, you know, voice your opinion about something to somebody else, about how you feel, you can. But I'm here to stand up for, like, that's the way I was raised. Like, there's no way that a woman should have to say anything. Like, you're her man, regardless if it's taking the trash out or, you know, whatever it is. Like, you know the things that make her happy. You know the things that she doesn't want to say or doesn't want to talk about. So finding that middle ground of, hey, yes, I know you've had to do it for yourself for this long, but you have a partner now that is willing to take on the hard work. I don't mind. I don't care about taking out the trash. I don't care about washing the car. Like, that's a chore for you because it's just something, damn, I got to do this. And I was like, I was brought up and raised that these are things that as a man you handle, whether you're single or you're married, you're dating, whatever it is. Like, these are things that a man does, period. So when you're a single woman, you are required to do it yourself. You know, so you don't, and sometimes they don't know how to step back.
Okay, so how do we close the gap with that?
So there's a couple of ways to do it. The other side of that coin is that there's still an element of men who are naturally resistant and insecure dealing with women who are accomplished and who walk confidently in their own power.
Okay.
And so that's one of the unfortunate realities.
And you can't change that.
Of living in a patriarchal society. This is definitely a patriarchal society. It seems like it's becoming even more patriarchal. So there needs to be a realization to men who are accomplished that being involved with women who are also accomplished doesn't mean that it's a threat to your masculinity. You have to accept it. I'm unique in the sense that, you know, I was raised by a strong woman. I've had a strong woman in my life my entire life. And so that's just my preference and the type of personality of women that I find myself being friends with or being attracted to or just working with. So it's never been an issue for me. But I see it time and time again that for men who are insecure, strong, confident women who are walking in their purpose, they see it as a threat to them because unfortunately a lot of men patriarchally still want to feel like they are
in control,
and also they want to feel like they are bringing something to the table that this woman will need him for, as opposed to looking at it as I bring what I bring, you bring what you bring, and then we bring it together and rise up together.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a reckoning amongst the overall male psyche to not look at women who are successful as a threat. Because it's easy for a lot of those men to look at women who might be struggling or going through things and say, oh, I can step in.
it's a savior complex. It's like, oh, you know, I'm the superhero because I came in and you couldn't afford to pay the light bill, so I have a little extra money. When you're dealing with, and my dad, loving to death. My dad was a CIO for a huge accounting firm in DC. My mom went to school, graduated nursing school when I graduated high school, and within 2 years was making more money than my dad was making. My dad was in six figures already, and she came out of nursing school at the age of, what was she, 38? No, sorry, 42. She came out of nursing school because I was 18. So, but she came out, and it was in 2 years. She's working 3 days a week, and she's making more money than my dad, who's working 5 days a week, traveling to different states, doing all this stuff, to the point where she's like, okay, your money can be for the bills, and I'll save for our retirement, and I'll save for our vacations and everything like that. And watching that as a young man growing up, and watching my dad like be okay with that, it didn't affect him. He was like, I'm still the man of the house. Like at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter who makes more. That was one of the things I learned early. It doesn't matter who makes more money at the end of the day. It really doesn't matter. It's that you, like Art said, you come together and you build up and you build out. That's the biggest part of it. And I think so many guys miss that part. They feel like, oh, I have to be in control of everything. I have to be able to run everything. And that's not a partnership. Like it's very hard to humble yourself to that point. But if you really want things to work out and you really want to be the person you are and get to the level you want to, you can't do it alone. Like we've all seen it. Like, hey, what's going on, man?
You guys record?
Yeah.
Hey,
What's going on, man?
Good to see you, bro. How you doing?
Good. You smoking a cigar today or not? You done?
Burnt look like a tomato, man. Trying to go home and hope that that's the end of the night.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll let you guys do your thing.
All right, man. Let's catch up with you.
See ya.
So, but I think it'll take some time for future generations of men to feel that level of music. So, because it's been, what, maybe 60, 70 years since women started entering the workforce in full-time positions that rival men's and exceeded.
But I think
so. It'll take time.
I think also this conversation needs to be had as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we get to that point of, oh, we don't want to offend anybody, or, you know, we don't want to, he's so sensitive, or she's sensitive, or, you know, or he's misogynistic. And it's like, no, the hard conversations need to be had to hash everything out, because I may come off a certain way, or I may view you a certain way, and guess what? When we come down to brass tacks and we iron everything out and say, this is how I feel and this is what I view things as, you guys may have very, very similar views, but because you're not necessarily, you're listening to react instead of listening to actually absorb, that we miss those things. I know I'm guilty of that in the past. Like, I'm like, oh, I already know what she's going to say, and she's going to do this, and she's going to do that, and guess what? She really didn't, but I perceived it the way I wanted to perceive it. I already had a preconceived notion of what this person was going to say. And so I already had my opinion. It was done. I already knew, oh, this is what she's about, or this is what he's about, so they're not going to change my mind. And because you go in closed-minded and you already made a decision, you can't change now. But if you go into the conversation openly saying, you know what, I want to just listen and hear what you have to say on every point, and then process it, and it may take a day, it may take an hour, it may take 2 weeks, but literally sit in that information and process how that other person feels, the experiences that they've gone through. Then you now have a more clear understanding of how we need to move forward. Like, what can you do? And it's that simple thing of, you know, you listen to one person's story and they say, well, you know, I had this hardship and that hardship. Okay, now what can we do to make sure that the future generation doesn't have that hardship?
Right.
Well, we have to do A, B, and C, and we have to do it as a collective. And I think as adults, because I'm not going to say as men and women, because biologically we're men and women, but as adults, like with thinking brains and understanding that there are different ideologies and different ways of life and different ways of doing things, as an adult, you have to sit in that stew and really figure out, like, is what I've been taught or what I've taught myself, is that really the core of it? Or is there more information that I could extrapolate from someone else and form a new ideal of what a man in a relationship would be, or what a woman should be, or how we should come together? And the answer is, yeah, you have to. Nothing is cookie cutter anymore. This is not the 50s where mom stayed at home and took care of the kids and cooked all the meals and cleaned the house, and dad went to work. That ideal is gone. It's long gone.
Not
You know?
that.
Okay.
But it takes a strong man to be able to stand in his own power, to stand in power in his relationship with his partner, and also to be able to enable and celebrate his partner, his woman, standing in her own life, in her own
Absolutely.
power,
You have to be supportive.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's essentially so. What I got from it is having these types of conversations within groups, right?
Yes.
Men, women. Okay.
Yeah.
Because and that's what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
It's I always look at everything as how do I close the gap with certain things. So I see a problem. I'm very solution oriented.
So we'll call that the cigar single collective.
And I think it's a conversation, like I said, it needs to be had with both groups.
Okay.
Like I don't like the ideology of men sitting and talking about relationship issues with just men,
Right.
and women sitting,
And
because
yeah.
you're always going to have that one jaded individual
Yeah.
who, no matter how positive the conversation's going, that one individual is going to find a way to twist it and turn it negative, and then everything that's supposed to be progress
Yeah.
has now gone the other way.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to be a group where you have men and you have women, because you'll have that one woman that says, well, this, and women tend to be way more supportive of other women.
Yeah.
But I think in that situation, when the other species is there, they're going to be someone who's like, oh, no, wait, my man does not do that, or the men that I know, they don't act like that. So they're more apt to defend that point and say, no, that's a individual thing that happened. That's not a whole. That's not a generalized thing. Like we generalize men and women in certain lights. Like, oh, men only do this and women only should do this. No, that's not a fair assessment at all. At the age we're at the time we're in, women are very powerful. They've been very powerful, and we've neglected to give them that praise, to show them, hey, we appreciate you, not just as a mother, not just as a wife, but as an entrepreneur. In your case, as somebody who said, you know what, this is the norm. I'm going against the norm, and I want to not only make a name for myself, but I want people to understand that it's okay to be different. It's okay to step out on your own. We're in that age of working from home and remotely, where a lot of people's entrepreneurial spirits are coming out because they have more time. Like, yeah, we're at home working, but you don't have that hour commute there, that hour commute back. So you got 2 extra hours that now you're like, there's this one passion I had, like maybe it was, oh, I like crafting wood, or I like building, certain pieces of furniture. And now you're able to have that actual extra time where you can do that. And I think using that extra time that we have, not just for ourselves, but for bettering each other, sitting in a group, say, oh, I got an extra hour this week, let's go ahead and do that meeting. Or even if it's not an in-person, let's do the Zoom call, where we're all going to get on the Zoom call. We're going to have a little, introduction, say, okay, this is what the topic is for the week, or sending out an email earlier, saying, hey, this is the topic of the week. Send out your questions, send out your comments, and then you're a moderator, and you say, hey, this is what, the question was, or this was a statement. These are the questions that came in. Does anybody mind chiming in and giving their opinion, or how do you help this? It's like Steve Harvey and the Strawberry Letter. So we had the morning show, and there's a letter. Somebody writes in a letter, and they're like, oh, well, my spouse is doing this, or I had this issue. And then you have people who are listening to the show, who they call in and they give their opinions. But Steve also does it, and his co-hosts help say, well, hey, this is what's happening. You need to look out for A, B, and C. So you have one problem that maybe 100 or 150 people have, but everybody's scared to say anything. So it's one person writes a letter, and then now you have 50 different opinions or reasons, or sometimes it's, well, maybe it's because this, and this is not being done anymore. This isn't in order. Or maybe they feel displaced, or they don't feel, appreciated. And so you get a lot of different perspectives where really in your group of friends, if you're the only one that's in a healthy relationship, whether it's a marriage or dating, and everybody else is just dating, you don't have that. You're not going to get that positive that positive return of, oh, me and him had an argument, and this was said and that was said, and they're like, oh, girl, fucking leave him. There's a million other people out here. That's not the solution.
Right.
It's you have to work through the problems, because guess what? You can leave this person. The next person you go to, you may have the exact same issue. You know what? It might not be them. It might be you.
It's a common denominator.
And it helps to have different views on the topics, because then you can actually get perspective. Because if I talk to guys only, they're like, "Oh man, nothing's wrong with you," you know. And then when you talk to women, they're like, "Well, we're built differently. At this time of my life, when I was that age, this is what I was going through, emotionally and mentally and physically." And you gain the perspective of your woman or your man to the point of, they never told me that because maybe it was an embarrassing thing for them to say, or maybe they didn't want to show vulnerability. But now you pick up and say, "Oh, I have to be more emotionally supportive because they feel this way. They may not be able to express it because they don't want to seem weak," especially with men. Like we're taught, you have to be. You don't cry. You don't have feelings. You do this. And I will tell you, I was brought up that way in utter bullshit. Like my mom loved me to death, and she was the one that told me, she's like, "It's okay to cry." And I'm like, "No, it's not." She's like, "No. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you can't express your emotions and express your feelings." She's like, "It is okay. It is healthy." She's like, "Because when you build all that shit up and you never release it," she's like, "when it comes out black." She's like, "It comes out like death." She was like, "You're going to kill relationships. You're going to kill friendships." She was like, "You're going to kill opportunities that you've had. Like literally people are waiting for you to get to a certain level to say, 'Hey, we want to open up this door for you.'" And she was like, by holding all of that anger and frustration in and just discontent and hurt, she was like, when it comes out finally, it's never going to be a positive thing.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be vulnerable. I think, we've also got to that point of, because women have developed such male tendencies, I know for me, like with my girlfriend, it was a very hard place to say, "I want to tell you how I feel," or "I want to express that you said this to me and I didn't like it," or "this hurt my feelings," because she's a very firm and aggressive person. So forgetting that she's my woman, because I'm seeing these outward traits of male tendencies, I'm like, I don't know how she's going to take that, or I don't know if she's going to agree with it. I don't even know if she's going to accept it. Like she might just be like, "Fucking crying,"
Yeah.
You don't know that, so it's like, all right, well, I gotta sit back. I can't outwardly say what's going on because, or the opposite, or the other thing is, and I see this a lot. We've seen it a lot, like early, like TikTok and Instagram. Like a lot of men are talking and they're saying, the reason I don't talk to my woman is because when I express what she's done that's hurting me, it turns into, "Oh, I can't do anything right," and it turns into me having, and I've seen it. I've lived it before in previous relationships where I tell you, "Hey, I don't like that you do this, or this hurts my feelings, or this isn't a productive thing for me," and then 30 minutes later, I'm the one apologizing to you for fucking what? Like, why am I apologizing because I voiced my, like, we have to communicate. You have to be clear in what we're saying. Tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said this, it made me feel this way. Well, I only said it because, like, don't ask me and then defend your point. Like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because if I would have said a hurtful thing to you, you would have said, "Oh, you're being insensitive and you're not respecting my feelings and I have to apologize." I'd say, "Okay, you know what? You're right. I was completely wrong in that situation. I misread it. I said something to you that I should not have said, or the way I said it came off wrong. I didn't communicate it properly." But I think a lot of it because we have pushed women into this role of, you have to be everything for yourself because you shouldn't depend on anybody, which sucks because we're supposed to be partnered.
Right. And then I think the other thing is, I don't know if it's like this generation or this world, right, that we're currently in, is that a lot of men are not men, right, or manly, and so it pushes the woman, it forcefully pushes us into the, okay, well then I have to be the
100%.
leader, right, because someone has to be the leader.
100%.
Someone has to do these things that, well, if he's not willing to do it, he doesn't know what to do. So recently, I'm a member of fellowship, and so I was sitting with a couple of people, and it was four of us. It was, 2 women, 2 men, and then there was this other older gentleman that came into the conversation, and we were talking about these types of topics, right? And so one of the guys kind of was like the moderator, and he's like, "This is the topic. You give your answer. You're done. Okay, you give your answer. You're done. You give your answer." And that the older gentleman, he's in his 60s around. Every time he sees me now, right? He says to me, "Oh my God, that was one of the best conversations I've had."
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shocked. And I said, my answer to him was, "Well, then you're not in the right circles."
That's true.
You know, like if you're not having these types of, man, you know, you guys are so open and honest and full of knowledge, and you know, we're talking about all these things, and you guys are so honest, and people aren't that honest. And I said, really? And that also kind of gave me the idea, and that's why, you know, I'm bringing that up now, is that, okay, well, the gap has to be closed somehow, right? So I'll take it upon myself to try to bring people together to have these types of conversations.
And he's a perfect example of someone who got comfortable being in the circles that he was in because it wasn't forcing him to grow.
Right.
It wasn't forcing him to evolve.
And you know what I like in that too? It's the simplest analogy, but when you think about it, like think about when people get older, how do they dress? They dress in the style that was most popular when they were young.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
because
you
like,
can see it.
you look at like the guys who are like Art's age. Like Art still dresses like, no, he dresses like a gentleman.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of guys who are in basketball shorts and Adidas jumpsuits. You know, like that's their like, oh, this is my prime right here. This is what I had all the women looking at me. So they're 60 years old and they're still dressing like that. They're 70 years old and they're still dressing like that because that was their heyday. And they hold on to those ideals that were in their heyday, and they never actually get to, like you say, they never grow. Because it's, no, this thought process worked when I was in my prime, so this is what has to be. They never realize that society changes every day. Not every year, every 10 years, every 20 years. There are societal norms that are struck down and brought out every single day. And if you can't talk to and that's why I like talking to Art. Art's 14 years older than me, you know, but he has knowledge. My dad's 10 years older than him. So, you know, it's that middle ground, like I said, it's that big brother I have. Like, there's some things that I'm just not going to talk to my dad about because it's my dad, you know? But I have that situation where I have a friendship with somebody who is older than me, you know, who's, you know, at a point in his life where I want to get to. So how do you get to that point? You talk to the person who's there now, and you learn from them. And you say, well, what mistakes did you make? You know, and also what good decisions did you make to get you from where I am to where you are? And
what did I learn from those mistakes?
And knowing that it's okay, and knowing it's okay to ask for the help. I think we're at a societal place where it's like you have to do it on your own. You know, like I said, we've pushed women into that. Like, you got to figure this shit out. Like, you want to be successful, do it on your own. You want to have kids, figure it out. You want to be the boss, figure it out. It's never been a let's help each other. And I think we have to get to that place, especially now, where we're saying, you know what, how can I help you? Not what can you do for me, but how can I help you to grow? Like, is there anything that you need direction on or help with? Even if it's like, you know, like with you. I haven't smoked a pipe before, so you ask for help, somebody taught you how to smoke a pipe. They said, this is the way you do it, these are the wrong things, these are the right things. And guess what, now, look, you're now opening up, 10 to 20 other women in your area to smoking. And you know how that trickles away? Because the next time they post a picture, somebody that may be in Cali or somebody that may be in Canada or Europe may see them like, you can smoke pipes? I can do that too.
That's really cool.
Let me try it. And now you've started you've started a new wave of culture that was never thought of before, because it's like, that's a man's thing.
Yes.
You know?
You're able to empower.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't even care to be the, oh, well, she started it. You know what I mean? I don't
Yes,
care
it's
to
not for
even,
notoriety. It's just like,
it's always about, hey, how can we bring all these people together, and how can our minds become better daily? That's it.
Yeah, to me, that's one of the most beautiful things, and I wish, as a male-dominated society, that we were more open and apt to listening. Like, it's a very, very hard process to get men to sit down and listen. And the reason is because, again, like I said, in my generation, in our generation, we were taught that you have to make the decisions. It's never been a, hey, you have to consult with somebody or you have to talk to your partner. Like, I saw that with my parents, but that's not the way they were brought up. You know, my dad's a totally different breed. He's not that guy that's like, I'm the man in the house, and if I say I want steak, then we're going to have steak. My mom's like, if chicken's on sale and the shit's cheaper, I got 4 people to feed. Guess what? We're eating fucking chicken tonight.
Yep.
That's just what it is. And it's knowing that picking your battles. There are certain things that just aren't even worth an argument. Like, she has your best interest at heart and you have her best interest at heart, vice versa. So understanding that point of you're not always going to be right and being okay with it. Like, yes, everybody wants to be right and everybody wants to say, thank you, you're the best. You saved it, you did this. That hero complex shit is out the door.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get together
Right
and still be wrong. Or you could be right and everybody says, we're still not doing it your way. So it doesn't matter that you're right. But learning to conform and say, it's okay for me to step back and let somebody take the initiative in certain things. There's nothing wrong with that. And understanding that in your power, you don't have to always be the front person. You really don't. It's not like, oh yeah, he's the head of the household or this. No. We are working together for a common goal, which is obviously happiness, peace, but also success. If you don't have happiness and you don't have peace in your relationship, guess what? You can't be successful.
Then
You
I'm
can't. And then, exactly. And then you're back to square one. Now you're single and you're successful and you're like, all right, but I want happiness and peace for someone, but how do I get it? Because it didn't work out before. So now how do I navigate? And one of the guys I follow on Instagram and TikTok was saying, he's like, you want a professional man? Then go to shit the professional men do. Don't go to the club at 40 years old and think you're going to find your soulmate. Like, that's just fucking retarded. Like, you're going to a club, like, the people who are in clubs, male and female, they're looking for a hookup. They're not looking for, I'm looking to go find my wife or my husband tonight. No, I'm looking for somebody to occupy an hour or two of my time after I get drunk, and then I never want to see him again. So cigar lounges are one of the biggest places, he said. He said, if you're a professional woman and you want a professional man, where do professional men hang out? At the golf course?
Yep.
At the cigar lounge?
Steakhouses?
At the Citrus Club? Things like that. Like places that they know that once they meet certain people, those people are going to help to elevate them to the next level.
Yep.
If you want to meet somebody who's looking to be where you are or get to the level above you, you have to go to those places.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of it is, and again, cigar lounges are great, but if you know this cigar lounge is known for, just, it's a club night, but in a cigar lounge, don't go there expecting to find your husband or your wife or even a life partner. Like, that's not what you're going to find there. And don't get me wrong, every different lounge is great for what it is, but if you're going there with the intention of, yes, having fun and enjoying yourself, but also potentially finding someone to get to know, you can't, it's like, don't go to McDonald's and get a burger and expect filet mignon. Like, it's fucking McDonald's.
Right.
It's just, you have to go where the position you want to be in life, that's where those people are. And yeah, sometimes it's hard to get into those places, but is the effort worth the reward? Absolutely. Like, yeah, you may have to buy a membership in, to get into this place, but that membership is for a reason. It's to keep certain individuals out to make sure that the people who are there for the right reason.
And it's to bring in the right people, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think because that's one of those things, like you said, like, where do you go? How do you find them? And that's the way to find them. Like, especially in Atlanta. There's a cigar shop on every corner.
Yeah.
So it's finding that right place that fits the mold of what you want and what you're looking for. Like, if you want that dude who's going to be out here in the streets and, you probably won't see him for a week, and if you see him, it's going to be with another girl and you got to act like you don't care. Like, go to that lounge. That's cool. But if you're looking for that stability and longevity, you may have to go to the club or the lounge where, it's business attire only.
Yeah.
And it's $100 to get in, to secure your table and for the night. And yes, at some point it's like, it's ridiculous. I find some of the pricing in Atlanta, I'm like, what? I'm like, to go to a cigar lounge, I still got to buy liquor, I still got to buy certain things, but I have to pay to get in. Like, you have to buy a daily membership or things like that. There's what's the name of that place, Art?
Red Thunder?
Who was that? TC was telling us about. Remember, he had one of his clients. He put TC's name on a list
Oh
to
yeah.
get in. So there's like
Red Combi?
I can't remember the name.
That's really the only place where you just need a code to get in.
What's it called?
Red Combi? That's really the only place in my mind.
But it's a private cigar lounge, and it's a members only cigar lounge. And you can and obviously it's like
you can invite if you're a member.
businessmen and politicians and things like that. But you can have a guest. But everything's like he was like everything's covered. No matter what he had, it was just.
Oh,
But it's those type of places that I get the scrutiny because you don't want just anybody coming in.
right.
But I think at the same time, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to act accordingly or they're going to dress accordingly. Now, if they come to the door and you have a strict policy and the policy, everybody knows the policy, it's out there, it's on your website, it's on the front door, then, okay, you're not following basic instructions, okay. But, you know, I think it's very separatist in a way. And like, if you don't know the right people or have the money to grease the wheels, you're kind of at you fall short in certain things. And I've noticed that here too, like even in some business that I do. If I don't know somebody or if somebody doesn't introduce me to that person, it's a no-go. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It doesn't matter what you have to offer and what you can build. It's like it's your reference, you know. It's like you have to have that person to vouch for you and say, yeah, this guy's good or this woman's good in order to get your foot in the door for some things. And I think it's a little. It's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
Because you'll have that person who doesn't necessarily have the resources, but they have a great idea, and they just can't get past the front door because they don't know the password. But if they had the password, their idea is something that would exponentially improve the way of life of a lot of people, or just culturally, or even in a fun setting. It would be something that people can really be attracted to and love, but they never get that far because we are a status society, you know.
All right, gentlemen.
Yeah, we've had it's one of our longer episodes, going on 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Hour and 47 minutes. So.
Really? Wow.
So, on behalf of the Cigar Snob and Chair Force Steve, who's doing his duty this weekend,
Yep.
doing this,
It's probably already smoking.
probably. And thank you to, well, not from Victoria. And definitely go to FedoraDesigns.com.
Yeah. Instagram, Fedora Designs.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Facebook, Fedora Designs.
Buy. Because I only can look as good as me in this hat.
Wow.
But get your own.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I'm gonna send my girl the link. Like, hey, so my birthday's coming up next month. So you're thinking of an idea. Let me pitch one to you. So she's probably watching. So FedoraDesigns.com, babe. Appreciate it. You know what I like, so.
Put on his card, no limit.
No, it's a gift. It's a birthday gift. No, her birthday's before mine, so I'm actually taking her to New Orleans. It's her favorite city. I've never been.
What?
And she's a dancer, professional dancer. So we're going to the International Salsa and Bachata Festival.
Oh.
This is the first year they've opened it up since COVID.
Wow.
So we're going there for 5 days
Okay.
to I don't dance. So like I've been learning slowly how to bachata. So she doesn't know, but I've actually entered us in a dance competition.
Now.
that's what
She knows now.
Hopefully she ain't listening. But yeah, I've entered her so we can actually do it because I'm like, I'm not the dance. It's not dance. I've never been one. So it's interesting to like learn in your 40s how to dance versus learning when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more mental because you're like counting the steps in your head and trying to look at your partner. And like that's one of her dreams is to be, you know, when we retire, she wants to go into competitive ballroom dancing. But she loves it. She loves it. And I'm like, I don't know that. She's like, I'll make you look good. Don't worry. I'm like, all right. It's like if I can just stand there and twirl you around, and I don't have to do a lot of steps. I was like, I'm cool with that. So it's that's already been up.
But as always, smoke well, drink well, and always
Aim Center Mass. Thank you guys. Have a great one.
Thank
And
you.
we will be back next week, I think. If I don't take another vacation.